Okay. Good afternoon, everyone. I want to welcome everybody to our special council session of Wednesday, July 24th. Those in the gallery and staff and council for being here today, thank you. I'll call the meeting to order. We acknowledge we're in Mi'kmaq, the ancestral and unceded territory of the Mi'kmaq people. On the agenda, before we move the agenda, there's two items we'd like to add. So if you would, under business issues, 4.3, you would just add a recommendation from the Police Advisory Board from a meeting we recently had. So that'd be 4.3. And 4.4 would be a recommendation about some future meetings we want to have over the next month or so. So 4.3, 4.4 under business. Someone like to make a motion to approve the agenda as amended, please. Moved by Councillor Joseph, seconded by Deputy Mayor Gilroy. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Contrary-minded, nay. Motion is carried. Thank you. 2.2, approval of minutes. So there's a recommended motion that the minutes of the January 31st, 2024 special council meeting be approved. Someone make that motion, please. Moved by Deputy Mayor Gilroy, seconded by Councillor Porter. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Contrary-minded, nay. Motion is carried. Thank you. 2.3, public hearings. So we have several today. Mr. Boone is on deck. So 2.3.1, bylaw to amend municipal planning strategy 2403. Mr. Boone.
Thank you, Your Worship. Good afternoon, members of council, staff and public, and those who may be watching online. First one is the bylaw to amend the municipal planning strategy. We have a couple slides just to keep us on track here. So, Your Worship, this being the public hearing, I think you have some criteria to go through there.
Yeah. So this advises that the public hearing is being held in accordance with the Municipal Government Act, and the purpose of the public hearing is to provide the public with the opportunity to express their views on certain proposals prior to council making a decision. I'll now call the public hearing to order and call upon staff for presentation. Mr. Boone, please.
Thank you again, Your Worship. Your Worship, being the public hearing, this item has been in front of council on a previous occasion in respect to the first reading. So the report is in your package, so I'm going to give a couple of quick highlights here, and then we'll move forward. So this is an amendment to, to our municipal planning strategy, and it's really to look at our public participation policy. So there were amendments, a little confusion here. There was amendments to the Financial Measures Act, which also made changes to the Municipal Government Act. So within the changes to the bill, it was asking municipalities, giving us a few powers or a few opportunities to improve our planning process, but also requiring us to give budding municipalities notice of any planning changes we're making or any planning changes we're undertaking. So, for example, for us, it would be the town of Oxford, town of Amherst, and the Municipality of Cumberland. So we're doing any planning rezoning changes or changes to our planning policy, we have to get specific notice to those adjacent or abutting municipalities when it's within 200 meters of our municipal border. For new planning documents and policies, a public participation meeting would be required to be held. So that's more when we're doing policies to our MPS, not our rezonings or development agreements. So it's more specifically in respect to those new planning documents. So, for example, we're going to do we did a bunch of housekeeping amendments. We would have to do public participation because we're making a number of changes to our planning documents. But individual applications, like some of the other public hearings we have today, would not be part of that. And as always, for any municipal planning strategy amendments, we always have had in the past, we're just clarifying the need to have a public participation meeting before the public hearing you have before us. Next slide, Peter, please. Thanks. So not going to read the policy. Obviously, Your Worship is in the package, but this is just to clarify the policy for public participation within our MPS, and then we will follow that up by making changes to our actual public participation policy, which is a non-planning document because that's our public participation document. This is embedded in the MPS, the policy 6.24 you see in front of you. We will make adjustments to our actual public participation policy, which is actually policy 10-12. I know it was noticed in your report, but for today, all we're focusing on is the changes to the MPS. Next slide, Peter, please. Thanks. So just to summarize, no financial implications. This is a planning policy change, so obviously no impacts and this particular policy in the environment. The way this engagement was undertaken, notification of the public hearing today was done as per the MGA, which was 2 weeks prior. The hearing was advertised on our website, which is one of the changes that the MGA has already brought in place. We still placed an ad in the Casket, the locally circulating newspaper, just 1 week out of this public hearing. We had no comments received by staff in this process. One thing I will note that during, because this is a change to the municipal planning strategy and in our current policy, we did hold a public participation meeting on this topic. So we had a public participation meeting to talk about public participation, not to confuse the issue, but we held that back in February to meet the criteria of our existing policy. So no motions to consider at this point, Your Worship. This is an opportunity just to give a summary, and then I'll turn it back to you should there be any other public input.
Thank you, sir. So any written submissions?
Nothing received, and at the session back in February, no attendance by the public in this particular issue.
Thank you, sir. Anyone from the public here that wishes to speak to this issue? Seeing none, any further additional comments, Mr. Boone?
Not at this time, Your Worship, other than the next step in the process would be to bring this to a future agenda for council second reading. And where this is a municipal planning strategy change, it will have to go for the director and the ministerial consideration when the second reading's been issued.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Any additional questions from any councillors for Mr. Boone on this agenda item? Seeing none, thank you, sir, and I'll close the public hearing. On the agenda, 2.3.2, bylaw to amend the land use bylaw 2404, an amendment to Schedule A to rezone PID 251-84144, 2019 Highway 307. Again, sorry? 2019 Highway 307. Yeah. Again, this divides the public hearings being held in accordance to the provision of the Municipal Government Act, and the purpose of public hearings is to provide the public with the opportunity to express their views on certain proposals prior to council making a final decision. Now call the public hearing to order and call upon Mr. Boone for his statements, please.
Thank you again, Your Worship. This file has been before council as part of our normal rezoning process under the Municipal Government Act. So just to give you some context, property is an existing residential property. They want to convert it from a single unit dwelling to a duplex. This is a blended and an expanded or an extended family. They're looking to create 2 units just to create a little more privacy for the 2 family units that live here. It's looking at, in order to do this and to permit this, it requires a rezoning, because under the agricultural zone, duplexes are not permitted. And so in this case, we have to do the agricultural zoning change to country residential, which would in fact permit the duplex. This is an area, Your Worship, which is a very small lot, was part of an original development in that area for farming, but the lot itself is small, so it's not really designed as an agricultural property. So the appropriate zone, we feel, is country residential for this location. Next slide, Peter, please. These are just some concept plans of how they're going to divide it, just for information. The real key is here, as you can see, it's an agriculturally zoned lot, but it's predominantly in an area that's smaller lots with rural homes. So country residential, again, more appropriate zone for this area. So staff are in the past, we have looked at this as as an appropriate rezoning process. So again, no financial implications to us in this proposal, Your Worship. Environmentally, when they're doing the development and building permits, when the rezoning's done, they'll have to align with whatever the permitting requirements are from the Department of Environment. This is already an existing home. When it gets divided, it'll still be the same number of bedrooms. So at this case, I think they'll still be utilizing the existing septic, but that will be reviewed at permitting stage. Community engagement, again, on this was public notice was put on the Municipality of Cumberland's website 2 weeks prior to the hearing today in accordance with the MGA. Additionally, an ad was placed in the Casket 1 week out from the hearings today. Your Worship, we have, as per the comments there, have not received any comments or anything written or phone calls in this proposal. Again, no motions to consider today. It's just the opportunity to follow the public hearing process, and be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, sir. So you've already stated, no written submissions.
No, sir.
Anyone from the public here want to speak in regards to this agenda item at this public hearing?
Not that I was aware of, Worship, in advance, and the applicant was not planning on attending, but should there be any concerns or questions, I would bring them back to the applicant.
Thank you. And any additional comments from yourself, Mr. Boone?
Just as I said earlier, Your Worship, it's I feel it's a straightforward rezoning request. It's appropriate within our policies, and as per the report in your package, it aligns with our policies and within respect to rezoning.
Thank you. And finally, any additional questions from councillors for Mr. Boone in regards to this agenda item? Seeing none, thank you, sir. I'll now close the public hearing. 2.3.3, bylaw to amend the land use bylaw 2405, an amendment to Schedule A to rezone PID 25510-272 and 2533-1612, 496 Fox Point Road. Mr. Boone, so again, I have to advise the public hearings being held in accordance with the provision of the Municipal Government Act, and the purpose of the public hearings for the public to have the opportunity to express their views on certain proposals prior to council making a final decision. And I'll call this public hearing to order. Mr. Boone, please.
Thank you, Your Worship. I will note that the applicant is in the gallery today and will be available to speak should there be any questions. Your Worship, this being the public hearing once again, we have already been through the process of first reading. Plans for the development were included in your package. This is a location, once again, which has the agricultural zone. The property is openly used in parts as the Fox Point Inn and as a residential, country residential type home. So at this point, the proposal, as per your package, is to look at creating what we call fixed roof overnight accommodations. So eight cottage style kind of mini homes or chalets, doing it within a landscaped environment, looking at bringing it forward with, footpaths in between the buildings, garden spaces, community garden. And, long-term, this could be as part of an expansion to the inn itself as well. So in order for this to go forward, the best zoning for this type of development, Your Worship, would be country commercial, which is what we're proposing in the original first reading, and still have made no changes to that report. So this actually involves the two PIDs as per the application. So as you can see in the zoning map, again, not considerably large parcels when it comes to looking at agricultural type lands. Hasn't been utilized as agricultural land for some time. You can see it from the pictures, well-kept, maintained property, the inn itself, and as well as the lands that are considered for development remain just opened at this time. So next slide, Peter, please. So again, no financial implications, environmental, none specific. At the time when if the rezoning is approved and goes forward, the applicant will have to follow the process with getting permits for the buildings, which would include septic designs. This would be looking at utilizing what they call cluster systems for the design, and that would be done by what we call a qualified professional, or a QP2, which in this case would be an engineer. So applicant's very knowledgeable in development and construction process, so he understands the requirements to go through that at the permitting stage. Again, notification on the public hearing today was given through our website. We, in accordance with the Municipal Government Act, we did place the ad. This was one of several that we had in the ad that advertised the public hearings. That was done 1 week in advance, and we, in the report, in the presentation here, Your Worship, when this was created, we had no comments, but we have had one phone inquiry just prior to the hearing today. So I can speak to that if you wish now, or?
Sure.
Yeah, thank you.
Please.
So adjacent property owner just had raised some concerns with access to their property. Their property is actually, if we go back one, Peter, I can try to explain where it is. So if you look at the outlined, the heavy outlined areas, it would be the first, if you kind of go north on the map or to the top, it would be the property just to the north or to the top of the heavier outlined, almost looks like a hockey stick lot. So that lot was properly subdivided in 2021, and it has an access that is registered as well as an easement for Nova Scotia Power to get to that property. So we have confirmed that those right-of-ways and easements are in place for the purpose of access. So that was probably the main concerns, and just trying to understand the process, how it will go forward. That was explained to the individual property owner that inquired, and just trying to understand the density of the development. We feel that with the size of the property and what's proposed on the site plan, it does create those buffers from the development. So I think it's aligning with policy and appropriateness once the zoning is put in place. So we have told the applicant if they wish to provide something in writing, they can. And as you're aware, Your Worship, there's always the process after second reading, that there is a process if folks have concerns, they can raise them through the appeal process. So, but again, just to reinforce, both myself and Kira as a staff planner, we feel it's an appropriate application, and what information we've seen so far will be further enhanced at the permitting stage, because there is a requirement to do a site plan agreement for this type of development. So another step in the planning process that will happen at permitting.
Thank you. Have we received any written submissions?
No other written submissions, just that one inquiry by phone, and we may still receive something after the public hearing, which I can address in the second reading report. But as I mentioned, applicants here would be willing to speak. Mr. Barkhouse is here.
Thank you. So is there anyone from the public in the gallery that would like to speak to this issue today? Not seeing any. Any additional comments from the applicant, Mr. Boone, that you're aware of?
No, unless Mr. Barkhouse wants to speak, but he was here to make sure if there's any concerns raised, he could hear them, and we've had several conversations with him during the process, and if we have to move forward after the rezoning, I'm sure we'll have more conversations. So.
Sure. You okay? Good, sir. Thank you. And finally, any questions or comments from any councillors for Mr. Boone in regards to this agenda item? Seeing none, thank you, sir. Now I'll close this public hearing. Thank you. 2.3.4, bylaw to amend land use bylaw 2406, an amendment to Schedule A to rezone PID 25115965 8252 Highway 366, Linden. So again, it's to advise that the public hearing is being held in accordance with the Municipal Government Act of Nova Scotia, and it's to allow the public the opportunity to provide their views on an issue before council makes a final decision. Now I'll call this public hearing to order. Mr. Boone.
Thank you, Your Worship. I'm just switching slides here, so bear with me. All right. Once again, public hearing as you described, Your Worship. This is an example of a rural lot that was zoned agricultural during the initial planning document, or MPS and land use bylaw created back in 2018. It is actually a small lot. It hasn't been utilized for agricultural purposes in quite some time. You can see on the air photo, it's outlined in kind of the purpley blue, but you can also see to the left that they're proposing to subdivide the lot into two parcels and looking at creating two individual building lots. That has been reviewed or is under review for design from a qualified professional to do the septic design. The reason the rezoning is required, Your Worship, is the size of lots required under agricultural would allow single unit dwellings, but the lot sizes are much larger in our agricultural zones. So this is as an opportunity to create a country residential zone, which is an appropriate zone for this area based on the development that's in the area. There is farms close by, but this particular property and the properties adjacent and across the highway are definitely utilized more for what I consider country residential. So next slide, Peter, please. Just a few pictures taken along the area just to give you a flavor for the neighborhood. Certainly the picture in the middle is the existing property that's in question. The other are shots of the roads up and down, but just gives you an idea. It's not really, it's more of a country residential. It's a lot of recreational properties in this area, summer homes and year-round homes both. But at this point, I think it's an appropriate request for the rezoning. Next slide, Peter, please. So, knowing financial implications, as I mentioned, a future subdivision would have to meet the requirements for approval by Department of Environment. So I kind of highlighted that a little bit earlier, just to show the suitability to create the two separate lots. So soil assessment will be done and completed as part of the subdivision process. The license surveyor that's working on this project has already looked at this, so I think they feel confident that it would meet the requirements for those soil conditions to create the two separate lots. So under community engagement, similar to the other hearings we've had today, not to be repetitive, Your Worship, but in fairness to the process, it was advertised on our Cumberland County website 2 weeks prior to the hearing today. That's in accordance with the Municipal Government Act. Additionally, the ad was in the locally circulated paper 1 week out. And at this point, we had received no comments, written or otherwise, on the amendment. So no motions today, Your Worship, just an opportunity to follow the public hearing process. Happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, sir. So you already indicated we've not received any written submissions.
No, sir.
Is there anyone from the public here that wishes to speak to this agenda item, this public hearing? Seeing none, any further comments from the applicant themselves, Mr. Boone?
There was nothing further from the applicant, Your Worship. They're happy with the process. They want to just continue forward, and I think it's an opportunity for them to put the land into use, and I think it's appropriate, as I mentioned earlier, in alignment with policy and our plan.
Thank you. And finally, any questions from councillors or comments for Mr. Boone in regards to this agenda item with the public hearing? Seeing none, thank you. I'll now close the public hearing. Thank you, Mr. Boone.
Your Worship.
Back to our agenda, 3 organizational policy bylaw items. 3.1, second reading of Omnibus Bill Repeal 2024 bylaw, not bill, bylaw. Mr. McCracken, it does. Old habits, that's right. Mr. McCracken.
Thank you, Your Worship. The purpose of the bylaw is to repeal existing bylaws of the former town of Parsboro, the former town of Spring Hill, and one current bylaw of the Municipality of Cumberland. The Clear the Deck report, if you recall, identified more bylaws that should be repealed, as well as those that should be further examined to determine whether they should be repealed or not. Subsequently, Stantec was hired to do a thorough policy and bylaw review for the municipality. A report of their findings was circulated in June. It's staff's intent to use the findings of that report to phase in recommendations for repeals, amendments, and creating new bylaws and policies over time. So the first phase is sort of repealing the bylaws and policies that are recommended for repeal. And today we're looking at an omnibus, easy for me to say, bylaw to repeal a slew of bylaws that are on the books from the former towns of Parsboro and Spring Hill. This will allow the municipality to move forward with confidence that we have one set of bylaws that are current and relevant. As mentioned, some information is shared in a previous meeting, and there's information in your package and a motion for consideration.
Thank you, sir. So the recommended motion is that council approve second reading of the Omnibus Repeal 2024 Bylaw 2407. Someone like to make that motion? Moved by Councillor Joseph, seconded by Deputy Mayor Gilroy. So questions, comments for Mr. McCracken? Seeing none, call for the question. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Contrary-minded, nay. Motion is carried. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
3.2, first reading, bylaw to amend MPS 2408 and bylaw to amend land use bylaw 2409 to redesignate and rezone a portion of PID 25044124 Napan. Mr. Boone.
Two. Right. Sorry, Your Worship, just
Please.
let my
Yep.
technical
No, it's
advisor
good.
get back in his seat. multitasking. All right, thank you, Your Worship. It's 24, yes, sorry. Sorry, Your Worship, just,
2409.
yeah.
24.
Right,
There you go.
yeah, we're good. All right, thank you, Your Worship. This is a first reading, so first time for staff to present this.
Mr. Gilroy? Deputy Mayor declares the conflict. He'll leave his seat. Thank you, sir. Appreciate that. Mr. Boone?
Yeah,
Thank you.
thank you, Your Worship. So again, Your Worship, first reading, first opportunity for staff to present this file to council. So it's, there's two components to this. So one is the amendment to the municipal planning strategy, and the second is a rezoning, so it would be an amendment to the land use bylaw. So, Your Worship, just to explain the application. This property is owned by Von Melanson. It's in West Amherst, on what they call the Southampton. The property fronts on the Southampton Road and the Fenton Road. The rezoning and the municipal planning strategy redesignation will actually, the application is actually on the Fenton Road. So what they're looking to do is create a site for a single unit dwelling. They have an interested party who wants to buy some land and develop a home on it. There are already homes on the Fenton Road. It's also access to some of the surrounding agricultural lands as well as to the wind turbine site. This property, Your Worship, was zoned industrial under the original planning documents you can see on the zoning map to the left. So we're going to deal with the application that's before us, but we're going to work with the landowner to look at some other rezonings in respect to the industrial designation and the industrial zoning that is on this site. So just want council to understand that we're going to focus on the one task at hand, which is just to be able to create the development lots for the single unit dwelling. So next slide, Peter, please. So this is kind of the area in question. It's a rural road, gravel road. The site that's being considered is relatively flat, ease of access. There's not a lot of issues with any visibility or site distances for this to be appropriate as a residential development. So next slide, Peter, please. So considerations here, there's nothing financial, environmental, non-specific, other than I will mention that at the time when they look to draw development permits and subdivide off a lot or the potentially two lots, from this location, they'll have to go through the proper process of subdivision as well as design will be done for on-site septic and on-site sewage disposal systems. This is a little trickier, Your Worship, in the fact that we have to amend the municipal planning strategy because the lands are designated industrial and zoned industrial as well. At this point, we're going to bring that forward in the two components. We're only dealing with a portion of the PID as well, so it's important to note that. It was in the maps I showed earlier. So in community engagement process, the hearing today was advertised in accordance with the Municipal Government Act 2 weeks prior. We did hold an open house on this issue, which we are required to do under our current public participation policy because we're making a change to our municipal planning strategy. So that was actually held last week. Kira ran that public information meeting. No written submissions on that and no attendance at the open house. So it's an open house versus a public hearing like we're having today. All advertised in advance on our website, and we did advertise that public information open house as well in the casket 1 week prior to today's date and 1 week prior to that open house. So when it says no public comments, that's in reference, Your Worship, to the public open house, not because we're not having the hearing just yet, for clarification. So recommendations before you, the review of the policy is in the first reading. We'll get into a little bit more detail on this when we come to the public hearing stage. So Happy to answer any questions, Your Worship. The motion's there, and just reminding everyone that we're redesignating a portion of the PID for the municipal planning strategy, and we're going to rezone the same portion of the PID from the urban industrial zone to the commercial recreation zone, which does permit single-unit dwellings. Thank you, Your Worship.
Thank you, sir. The recommended motion is that council approve first reading of the bylaw to amend the municipal planning strategy 24-08 to redesignate a portion of PID 250-44124 from industrial to resource, and then to approve the first reading of the bylaw to amend land use bylaw 24-09 to rezone a portion of PID 250-44124 from urban industrial zone to commercial recreation zone, and to schedule a public hearing for the proposed bylaw. If someone would like to make that motion, please. Moved by Councillor Joseph, seconded by Councillor Redmond. Any questions or comments for Mr. Boone regarding this agenda item? Seeing none, we'll call for the question. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Contrary-minded, nay. Motion is carried. Thank you, sir. Deputy Mayor is going to resume his seat. 3.3, first reading bylaw to amend the municipal planning strategy 2409 to designate commercial development districts. Mr. Boone.
Thank you, Your Worship. Again, this item has been before council in the past, but we have kind of reset the process, Your Worship. So this is to create the commercial development districts, which will allow us to bring in a phased-in commercial tax bylaw. So the commercial development district requires an amendment to our municipal planning strategy to create the CDD, as they're called, commercial development districts. What we're proposing now, Your Worship, is a change from when this originally came through council back in 21 and 2022 to designate the whole of the municipality for potential commercial development districts, sorry, Your Worship. Establishing these CDDs will allow an application and implementation process of a commercial development support program. So that is how we're approaching this this program, Your Worship, in this application that's before you. So this is staff-driven. There's no applicant. This is being brought forward as a program that's now available, or has been available. There's a few municipalities within the province that have this in place now, one being Amherst and the other being Yarmouth. I know there are other municipal districts and municipalities considering the same. Next slide, Peter, please. So this is just a schedule. It's in part of your package. We would be designating the whole of the municipality. Schedule C would create the commercial development districts. So just as information, just providing the guidance and how the program would be applied would be done through a separate bylaw, which will establish the tax incentives, the process, and how folks would get in the program and how they would phase it in over time. Next slide, Peter, please, sir. So financial implications here, Your Worship. Opportunities, some economic burden for business owners, enables more commercial redevelopment. The program could apply to folks that are doing new development or expanded development. It could be a combination of both. The one implication for us that we probably should have stressed a little bit more in this presentation, Your Worship, again, it's only first reading, is that it would mean that the tax revenue from a new development or expanded commercial development would be phased in over time, so we wouldn't get the complete benefit of that tax revenue from the outset. So if the first reading is approved by council, we can hold a public hearing for the proposed amendment. Notification would be done 2 weeks prior as per the Municipal Government Act and would be advertised starting on the county website. I think this is a big program, Your Worship, so we would also advertise through the papers in advance of the public hearing as well. We did hold an open house to discuss this program because it's a change to our municipal planning strategy. So again, it's similar to the previous application when we changed the MPS. We have to have a public open house separate and in advance of us bringing it to council for first reading. So that is in our current process for public engagement. So no comments were received by the staff in advance in writing. We did receive one letter of support from Lee Weir from Crossroads Cycle Sales. Mr. Weir has talked to myself and other staff over time about potential expansion of his businesses in the Pugwash area. So he felt it was appropriate to support council and the process in this endeavor. So recommendations before you, Your Worship. There's a little bit more detail in the report, which also includes how the program would be administered, how folks would apply for it, and any limitations, but be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, sir. So the recommended motion is that council approve first reading of the bylaw to amend the municipal planning strategy 2410 for commercial development districts and schedule public hearing for the proposed bylaw. Someone like to make that motion, please? Moved by Councilor O'Telling, seconded by Councilor Redmond. Any questions or comments for Mr. Boone?
I have a question.
Go ahead.
Mr. Boone, if you could go back to the map
Yes.
that was in your presentation, please. Just a quick question, something I hadn't noticed before.
Presentation before that, or after that one, Peter, sorry.
Sorry, Peter. That one, yeah. So, the grayed out areas, the one northwest is Amherst, I presume, the one in the middle is Oxford, I presume?
Yes.
And what is the one in the west?
The one in the west, my understanding would be, there's a First Nation parcel that's held in that area. So it wouldn't be under our jurisdiction.
Okay, thank you.
Any other
I can
questions or
confirm
comments?
that back to the CAO in advance of the public hearing, but that's my understanding of it.
Thank you.
And I think it's actually under the connection and jurisdiction of the Pictou Landing First Nation.
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
Yep.
Thank you. Mr. Boone, could you speak to, or are you able to speak to the difference today than there was 2 years ago? Our understanding as a municipality and as a council about who qualified and who didn't, and why now it's the whole municipality versus specific areas?
Yep.
Thank you.
Absolutely, Your Worship. So in consultation, in the process that was conducted in the past, some conversations with the CAO, I think there's an opportunity for us to put this opportunity of the program in place for all of the municipality. There was some thoughts in the past that the program could only apply to areas that had central services, but we have had some consultation with municipal affairs, as well as we have had some conversation with our outside legal counsel to interpret the opportunities that's here. And so we feel that it can be applied to the whole of the municipality. So in the interpretation that we have, services means that you have to have, it has to be a service site. So for example, if it was a commercial development, say an agricultural development, and they weren't going to develop a barn or a holding facility warehouse that had no services, it wouldn't technically qualify. So we feel that for developments, maybe even similar to what Mr. Barkhouse is proposing in Fox Point Inn, or what Mr. Weir is thinking about doing in Pugwash, as folks that have asked us about these type of programs, it would be ones that are serviced with a system for septic and disposal, which could be a cluster system or a single septic system. It could be a well, or it could be a shared well with an on-site treatment that's, that you can see in lots of developments throughout Nova Scotia. So that's probably the biggest differential between the two, Your Worship.
Great. Thank you very much. Appreciate that. Any other questions or comments for Mr. Boone? Seeing none, we'll call for the question. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Contrary-minded, nay. Motion is carried. Thank you, sir. Uh, 3.4, Conflict of Interest Policy 1506 Amendment. Mr. McCracken.
Thank you, Worship. Again, just to reiterate, part of the Stantec report that we had from the bylaw and policy review, we identified some existing policies that I guess we would consider low-hanging fruit that could use some amendments that didn't require a lot of changes, and so we've identified a few of those for Council's consideration. The three that I'll be going through, the first one, conflict of interest policy, we're all in the Stantec report that was presented in June, and so we're recommending that council endorse these policies or approve these policies tonight. So the conflict of interest policy, draft of this amended policy is part of your package. It's part of the Stantec policy and bylaw review. As the RFD outlines, the proposed edit is very minor in this case, substituting the word defamation in place of slanderous. And slander, by definition, is a type of is a type of defamation that involves a spoken word or gesture that harms a person's reputation. Defamation is broader and can be written or spoken. So for the sake and the intent of the policy, we want that broader term included. So there's a recommended motion in your package.
They all want me to ask you to start over, but I won't do that to you.
Yep.
Recommended motion is that council approve the amended conflict of interest policy 15-06. Someone like to make that motion? Moved by Councillor Joseph, seconded by Councillor O'Telling. Questions or comments for Mr. McCracken in regards to this agenda item? Seeing none, call for the question. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Contrary-minded, nay. Motion is carried. Thank you. 3.5, condolences policy 1011 amendment. Mr. McCracken.
Thank you, Worship. So this is on page 105 of your package. Again, a draft of this amended policy was part of the Stantec policy and bylaw review report that was provided in June. Now, the purpose of this policy is to give directions to staff regarding when and to whom the municipality wishes to send condolences. The proposed amendments in the new draft are in line with current practices and creates a more streamlined procedure with updated language. And there's a recommended motion in your package.
Thank you. So the recommended motion is that council approve the amended condolences policy 10-11. Someone like to make that motion? Moved by Deputy Mayor Gilroy. Seconded by Councillor O'Telling. Questions or comments for Mr. McCracken in regards to this agenda item? Seeing none. Oh, Councillor Redmond, please.
How long is this policy gonna be in place? If you're only given $100 for flowers, it's not gonna work next year. They're 75 now.
Yeah. Well, we did, Your Worship?
Yes.
Yeah, we did raise the amount in event of a hospitalization of current member of council, employee or committee member to 75 from 50. We kept the one upon learning of death of the same individuals at 100, but we can make adjustments as we go.
55 times 6 is what it was for Reg's mother.
Any other
For
questions?
$300.
Any other questions or comments for Mr. McCracken in regards to this agenda item?
I could just make a comment
Okay. Yeah, please,
if
yeah.
I could, Your Worship. Recognizing exactly what Councillor Redmond has brought up, what we've evolved to in most cases is as memorial donation. Much easier to stay with a stated amount for the memorial donation. And really, in most cases, most families, that's what they request. So I don't think it makes it impractical for us to administer, so for now at least. So thank you, Your Worship.
Thank you. Any other questions or comments in regards to this agenda item? Seeing none, call for the question. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Contrary-minded, nay. Motion is carried. Thank you. 3.6, flag policy 18-18 amendment. Mr. McCracken.
Thank you, Your Worship. Again, a draft of this amended policy was part of the Stantec policy and bylaw review report that was provided in June. The purpose of the flag policy is to provide guidance to staff in two areas. One is community requests to fly flags on flagpoles located on municipal property. And the second is when flags are to be flown at half-mast. The changes of note are primarily regarding the flying of community flags, which we're eliminating, the 2-week maximum period for flying flags, and allowing the CAO to approve approve requests to fly flags from the community at their discretion. They may come to council if they so choose. But those are the two main changes to the policy, and there's a recommended motion in your package.
Thank you. So the recommended motion is that council approve the amended flag policy 18-08. Someone like to make that motion, please? Moved by Councilor Porter. Yep, seconded by Deputy Mayor Gilroy. Any questions or comments for Mr. McCracken in regards to this agenda item? Seeing none, I'll call for the question. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Contrary-minded, nay. Motion is carried. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Business issues. 4.1, Christie Community Foundation request. Mr. McCracken.
Thank you, Your Worship. We received a couple of requests from the Dr. and Mrs. H.E. Christie Community Foundation for the municipality to facilitate the transfer of funds from the foundation to community organizations. As you know, the municipality accepted donations of this nature in the past, has provided receipts to the donor and dispersed funds to the requested recipient. The disbursement is contingent on approval by council and is for an expenditure which the municipality has the authority to spend. So we received correspondence from the foundation and regarding two grants that they wish to provide. One is for $8,000 to the Amherst Golf and Country Club and $4,000 to the Heritage Models Association. There's a recommended motion in your package.
Thank you, sir. So the recommended motion is that council approve the request by the Dr. and Mrs. H.E. Christie Community Foundation for the municipality to receive up to $8,000 to be dispersed to the Amherst Golf and Country Club and $4,000 to the Heritage Models Association. Someone like to make that motion, please? Moved by Councilor Porter, seconded by Councilor Redmond. Questions or comments in regards to this agenda item? Seeing none, call for the question. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Contrary-minded, nay. Motion is carried. Thank you, sir. 4.2, Pugwash Farmers Market, traffic and parking concerns. So I'd asked to have this put on the agenda to look for Councillor Hotelling's input and maybe Councillor Redmond's, who lives in the area. But I know I've noted myself in the last few weeks, and I've had brought to myself by some community citizens or community groups, I guess, that are concerned about the traffic, which is terrific. It's great on market day, and Pugwash is bustling, but there's some concerns around safety, and I think one individual mentioned about children running out between parked cars that are double parked on both sides, or not double parked, parked on both sides of the road, and kids running between the markets and across the street, and the concern for safety and wanting to ensure that it's safe for everyone, and it continues to be that way in the future. So there is a recommended motion, and I would look to Councillor Hotelling and Councillor Redmond for their input, but the recommended motion is that staff write a letter to Nova Scotia Public Works requesting a traffic study of the Pugwash area during market days with possible options and solutions that may be considered. And so I'd ask for, if someone I would like that motion, please. Moved by Councillor Hotelling, seconded by Councillor Redmond. Great. So any thoughts or comments around that, folks, especially those who live in the area? Councillor Redmond, please.
Your mic, Kathy. Yeah.
Yeah.
There you go.
The painting of the crosswalks, they should be yellow, not white, because it is an intersection. There is a crosswalk there, but it hasn't been painted in 20 years, I don't think. And even if you go across on a day when there is no market, people look at you like you've got two heads if you go across in front of them. So I think maybe the letter might include the painting of the crosswalks.
And I was kind of hoping, and again, I was kind of hoping that all those issues, Councillor Redmond, would be addressed: crosswalks, parking on both sides, one side, neither side, maybe limited parking somewhere else in the parking lots, or whatever. I was really hoping that if we could ask Public Works to do this, they would look at all that, and absolutely the crosswalks are so vital to that area, especially during that busy time. So, thank you. Councillor Hotelling?
Yep, I attend the market every Saturday. I see it firsthand. It's definitely very, very busy, and people park all the way to the bridge on the road, which when you're coming into onto Durham Street, it's really hard to see people coming out between cars, so I agree. They were just there 2 days ago and painted the crosswalk, but they just paint the two white lines. So I had requested the zebra style, but I guess that has to go through a process. So that would be great, but if they did a study, I'm in favor of hopefully looking at all those things. The other issue is that now we have the new library across the road. There's a lot of people crossing that way. So having crosswalks across Route 6 off the bridge to go to the library is also something that they might look at.
Yeah, thank you. And again, really hoping that all these issues will be addressed if they do a study, because they'll have to look at more than just one issue there. There's several things that are complicating the process there, I think, for the parking, for safety, so. That's great comments. Thank you so much for that. Any other thoughts or comments? Deputy Mayor Gilroy, please.
Is there any assistance available from the RCMP with traffic analysis and stuff like?
Well, the Traffic Authority, Mr. Herrick can probably speak to this better than I, but our Traffic Authority obviously is Mr. Walcrest. They'll ask the Traffic Authority for the province, I would assume, to do that study. I think they just did one out in Southampton area. There's a lot of concerns out there, so they'll do a study themselves with their own officials, and they have the authority to do it. So I would hope that they would include all that, Deputy Mayor Gilroy, that they would include, concerns maybe law enforcement may have around those issues. But any thoughts, Greg?
Nothing to add, Your Worship. What you said is accurate, I believe.
Thank you. Okay, Deputy Mayor? Councilor O'Telley.
One more thing, do we have access to a speed limit sign, like that says how fast you're going, or
You mean
the flashing light
yes,
sign?
I think we have two, don't we?
I wonder if that can be
I
something
think,
that,
yeah, Mr. Walcrest should probably answer that. I believe we have two, don't we, Mr. Walcrest? One? We do have one. Solar, it's a solar sign, solar generated sign that indicates speed, yeah.
would it be possible to put that up,
So-
even for a couple weeks to see if it
We can-
changes?
We can request that. So we do have the one, and it gets moved about in areas where there's concern, so we could request to have it located there.
Okay, thank you.
Anything else? See nothing, I'll call for the question. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Contrary-minded, nay. Motion is carried. Thank you. 4.3 is Mr. Harret's going to speak to a recommendation from our RCMP Advisory Committee yesterday.
Thank you, Your Worship. A late addition to the agenda. As council is aware, yesterday the Police Advisory Board met for the first time really under the new terms of reference, which includes all members of council as well as members of the public and a provincially appointed member. While the terms of reference have yet to be formally approved by the minister, we have indications that they are about to be. At the meeting, one of the items that was discussed was 24-hour policing, and council will recall that in the RCMP's response to our RFP for policing service options over the last year or so, we will recall that process. One of the things that were put forward in that response was an offer to provide 24-hour policing in Cumberland County without additional resources, without additional cost to the municipality. And so, His Worship and I had discussed that with the local CO, Staff Sergeant Clark, and was discussed also yesterday at the Police Advisory Board meeting, and the board unanimously approved a motion to recommend to council that council, in accordance with the RCMP response to the RFP for municipal policing services, request the RCMP initiate a 6-month pilot for 24-hour policing in the municipality. And so that's the motion that the board has recommended to council, Your Worship.
So you've heard the recommended motion. Would someone like to make that motion, please? Moved by Deputy Mayor Gilroy, second by Councillor Joseph. Any thoughts or questions or comments about that agenda item? I will say that the staff sergeant had indicated to Greg and I probably a couple of months back that it would be fall before they'd be able to be able to bring about the change because of, obviously there's vacations, there'll be some realignment of scheduling for the RCMP officers themselves. So it will probably be fall before we see that change. And they also wanted to obviously check with their own organization, make sure that they're on board, which I believe they are. So anyway, any other comments or questions? Seeing none, call for the question. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Contrary-minded, nay. Motion is carried. Thank you. And lastly is it's 4.4, special meetings. Mr. Harrett.
Thank you, Your Worship. So a couple of items. to deal with on this one. One is the work around the municipality's divestiture of the Sunset properties, and we're working through that. We're working through that file, and we're getting very close to the end, and want to schedule a couple of special meetings. One is an in-camera virtual meeting with legal counsel, and that would be on August 14th at 4 p.m. unless there are any objections from members of council. And so I'll just kind of motor through that. The 14th at 4 p.m. online, Zoom. Should be a brief meeting, should be 30 minutes, something like that. And the second, the divestiture requires a public hearing and then council's final decision. And so we're suggesting that a public hearing would be held on August 21st, not the 28th, Councillor Hotelling, as I had said to you. 21st at 4, followed immediately by a special council meeting to consider the final decision. So without any objections, if I don't hear any objections, we'll go forward and schedule those meetings as well. Just for council's knowledge, we will begin to advertise the public hearing, and so there will be a bit of a media thing on that, so you'll see that come up. Any questions on that, Your Worship, before I move to the second part?
Great. Yeah, thank you. So, any concerns for councillors? Try to watch for Councillor Goodwin because there's a bit of a delay there in the transition there. Anyway, any thoughts or concerns from any councillors about those dates?
I have
Councillor Redmond.
I have a rehearsal at 4:30, which I will try to get changed to maybe 5, and then I can do the 4.
Is that for the 14th?
Yep.
14th. So, we do it 3:30?
Sure.
3:30 work better?
Oh, yeah.
Is everyone okay with 3:30? That way you don't have to maybe,
Yeah, I won't have to change
especially if you can't make a
anything.
change, so that way we go 3:30, all right? Everyone okay with that?
Yep.
3:30, all right?
Sure.
Councillor
Fantastic.
Goodwin, you okay?
Yeah.
Great, thank you. So 3:30, Greg's okay with it?
Sure.
Okay, and then the other one was the 21st.
At 4.
At 4.
Yep.
Okay for that?
And that will be a in-person meeting, one on the 21st. The second item, Your Worship, is just dealing with September council meetings and the end of council's term, imagine that. But so September has 4 Wednesdays, like most. Some have 5. This one has 4. The AMA annual conference, because of the elections, is in September this year, and it is from September 23rd to the 27th. The third Wednesday in September is the 18th, and we would normally have committee of the whole that day. That day is not an issue, but the normal day for council is. And so a couple of options. One is to have committee of the whole and council all on the 18th, all day, sort of at 1 in the morning, 1 in the afternoon. Just a bonanza of agenda items. And the other is to have committee of the whole on the 18th and September's council meeting on October 2nd, which would be the sort of the following Wednesday. So, Your Worship, council's pleasure.
Thank you. So, I guess my question to the council would be, is anyone opposed to having the committee of the whole and the regular council meeting on the same, or the special meeting on the same day?
No, I'm
Didn't think so, Councillor Redmond. So, is there anyone that objects to that? I really want to hear from Councillor Goodwin. You okay with that, Councillor Goodwin?
Yeah, I'm fine with that.
Great, thank you. And I know Councillor Gould's not here, but he's since joined the ranks as a retiree, so I think he might be okay. Hopefully, we'll speak for him. But and then Councillor McCormick's not here, but I think she's well. So, everyone's okay with that? 18th for a day.
Okay, that's that.
Okay, great. Thanks everybody for that.
We'll next time. Actually, if council is okay with it, Your Worship, perhaps we could get a motion today to reschedule the September council meeting to the 18th.
Okay. Someone like moved by Councillor Redmond, seconded by Deputy Mayor Gilroy.
Thank you, Your Worship. And finally, I guess if I could, just one.
Pass that first, or?
What's that?
Pass
Maybe
that.
I should let you finish. Yeah.
Yeah, if
Okay.
you don't
Go
mind.
ahead.
It's
Yes.
okay?
No, I'm good. Sure.
Call with question. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Contrary-minded, nay. Motion, did you have some, motion's carried. Did you have something else you wanted to say?
You're finished now?
I think so.
Yeah, okay.
Am I finished?
No, I don't know.
Wait for you to tell me.
And just a heads up that we'll be preparing a memo just to talk about October and November council meetings with the election on the 19th and the necessity for meetings and what the plan is and that sort of thing. So we'll just take a little bit of time and try to formalize that in writing and talk about it.
Good idea. That it?
With that, your worship, I'm
Thank-
finished with that. Thank you.
Thank you very
Yeah.
much. Councilor Redmond, do you have something you want to?
Yes, just to make public, nominations have to be filed by what day?
September 10th, is it? 10th, is it, Amanda? Or no?
September
September
10th?
10th, I think it is. I think that's the date.
I would defer to Kathy Kuhn, who isn't with us, but we'll be doing lots of promotion on that for sure.
Okay.
I think it is. Okay.